All right, let's get into it. Today, we're popping the hood to look at the powerful, precise, and honestly surprisingly simple machine that gets us from point A to point B. We're talking about the heart of almost every vehicle out there, the engine.
So let me start with a question for you. On one hand, you've got the absolute peak of automotive engineering, a Formula One car, and on the other, you have a humble leaf blower. What in the world could those two possibly have in common?
The answer, believe it or not, is that they both run on the exact same principle, harnessing the power of a tiny, controlled explosion that happens thousands of times every single minute. It's the same idea that powers the car sitting in your driveway right now.
So, how do we turn a simple bang into forward motion? Well, it's like a mechanical ballet of incredible precision, and we are about to dive right in.
First things first, let's just establish the fundamental mission of any engine. It really only has one primary objective: turning fuel into force. You see, you can think of fuel as just stored chemical energy. The engine is the magic key that unlocks it, converting all that potential into rotational force, or what we call mechanical work. That's what actually turns the wheels. Okay, now for the main event. The vast majority of cars on the road today use something called the four-stroke cycle. This is the engine's repeating rhythm. It's heartbeat.
Think of it like a dance with 4 simple steps. Step 1, the engine breathes in, pulling in a mix of air and fuel. 2, it squeezes that mixture way down. 3, bang, a spark ignites it, creating a powerful explosion that pushes a piston down. That's the power. And 4, the engine breathes out, pushing all the used-up exhaust gases away. So it's intake, compression, power, exhaust, over and over again, thousands of times a minute. And just think about the precision here for a second. For that single power stroke to happen in just one cylinder, the crankshaft, that's the part actually sending power to the wheels, has to spin around 2 full times. That's 720 degrees of rotation for one single tiny explosion. Incredible. And this is why the four-stroke design is just so dominant. By giving each job its own separate step, the engine becomes super efficient, it runs cleaner, and it's incredibly reliable. It's a design that is truly built to last. But while most engines follow that same 4-step rhythm, they don't all start the bang the same way. And that brings us to the huge difference between petrol and diesel engines: spark versus squeeze. Okay, so a petrol engine, right? It pulls in a mix of air and fuel, squeezes it, and then uses a spark plug to set it all off. We call it spark ignition. A diesel engine, though, does something totally different. It only sucks in air. Then it squeezes that air so hard that it gets insanely hot, and then it sprays in the fuel, which just explodes from the heat alone. That's compression ignition. And to put that into perspective, a typical petrol engine squishes the air-fuel mixture to about 12 times atmospheric pressure. That's a really tight squeeze. But a diesel engine, oh man, it can compress that air to 23 times its original volume. That insane pressure alone generates enough heat, we're talking up to 900 degrees Celsius, to ignite the fuel with no spark at all. So these totally different ways of doing things lead to very different personalities. A diesel's high compression makes it more fuel efficient for sure, but the real difference you feel is in the output. Petrol engines tend to make more horsepower, which is all about top speed. Diesels, on the other hand, are the kings of torque, and torque is all about raw pulling power. That's exactly why you find them in big trucks and semis. But hey, the four-stroke isn't the only game in town. There's a much simpler and much punchier alternative: the two-stroke engine. The two-stroke is just brilliant in its simplicity. It crams all 4 of those steps into just 2 piston movements. And the result? It produces a power stroke on every single revolution of the crankshaft. That's twice as often as a 4-stroke. This gives it an absolutely incredible power-to-weight ratio. And that's exactly why you find them in machines where you need a ton of power in a tiny, lightweight package. Just think about that high-pitched buzz of a dirt bike or a chainsaw. That's the frantic, high-energy sound of a 2-stroke engine hard at work. So, for over a century, the internal combustion engine, or ICE, whether it's a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke, has pretty much reigned supreme. But now, a new contender has entered the ring, one that works on a completely different principle. Let's talk about the electric motor. A traditional engine is really a marvel of mechanical complexity. I mean, you've got pistons, valves, camshafts, belts, hundreds and hundreds of moving parts all working together in this kind of violent harmony. An electric vehicle, on the other hand, well, it's stunningly simple. Its powertrain really only has two main parts: the battery pack that stores the energy and the electric motor that turns it into motion. That is pretty much it.
And that simplicity leads to a staggering difference in efficiency. A typical gas engine wastes about 70% of its fuel's energy as heat. It's only about 30% efficient. An electric motor, it's around 90% efficient. Almost all the power from the battery goes straight to making the car move.
And you can feel that difference from the driver's seat. A gas engine needs to rev up to really start making power. An electric motor gives you 100% of its pulling power, its torque, the absolute instant you touch the pedal. That's where that silent, immediate, push-you-back-in-your-seat acceleration comes from.
Which really leaves us with a final thought. We have spent more than 100 years mastering the art of the controlled explosion. But as technology shifts, you have to wonder, is the future of getting around defined not by the roar of an engine, but by the quiet efficiency of silence? Something to think about.